this year.
Welcome to 49ers Forecast.
You guys are going to hear it, the latest from the locker room, the latest from the podium, the latest scuttle from the players.
On your proud home of 49ers football.
Touchdown!
KNBR, the sports leader. Your faithful fix with your host Larry Krueger begins now.
And away we go. Welcome to 49er Forecast on a Saturday. Larry Krueger with you the day before the Niners take on the Houston Texans. Justin Allegri and Tim Ryan will be on the call. I'm the sports leader. JD and Adam Copeland will have pregame. I'll join them for a segment tomorrow. But welcome to 49er Forecast. We come to you on a Saturday. Happy October the 25th. I should say happy birthday to my big sister, Kim. Happy birthday, though she lives in Connecticut, so she's probably not listening to KNBR this morning. But happy birthday, sis. Hope you have a great one. My other sister's birthday is tomorrow, so happy birthday, Jennifer, tomorrow. Little advanced birthday wish. But I'm fired up. I am fired up on a Saturday. Why am I so fired up? You might be driving. Why are you so fired up on a Saturday, Krug? Well, you know what? I just watched my kid play high school football last night. Though we didn't win. Northgate lost to I think it was College Park. We put out at College Park last night for a little Northgate College Park tilt. And if you're sitting there going, wait a second, I think Northgate beat College Park. Yeah, no, my kid plays JVs. Yes, the Northgate varsity beat College Park. That was an exciting comeback from what I hear. But the JVs lost, and that my kid's a JV. So, oh well, we'll get them next time. Get them next time, JVs. Way to fight and claw. But I am in a great mood after I watched my kid play ball. And then, of course, today we got a whole full slate of college football to watch. Maybe I'm in a good mood today because the Dodgers got destroyed in game 1 of the World Series. Yes. God bless Berriger or whatever his name is for Toronto. The granny. Nothing better than watching Blake Snell walk off the mound and just know that what's coming. And I didn't watch it live. I was watching some college ball last night, watching some high school ball. But I taped it. And when I got to it and I saw the Dodgers lost and they had the blow up in the 6th, and then I saw Snell on the mound and there he was starting the 6th, and a little bleeder hit here, a little bloop there. And of course I knew 6 runs were coming. So I sat there and watched that inning, and it's like, oh, it was enjoyable. Go Toronto! The entirety of the U.S. outside of Southern California rooting for the Toronto Blue Jays. America is behind you, Canada, at least in this. So there you go. But go Blue Jays. So I'm in a good mood because of that, partially. I'm in a good mood because the Niners are playing well, and I'm excited for Niners-Texans. And why don't we start there? We got a great hour for you. The big story this morning, you're saying, is there a big Niner story this morning? I don't know if there's a Niner story per se. In fact, I can say definitively that there is not necessarily a Niner big breaking story per se. But Diana Rossini this morning has gotten a number of people interested in what she's reporting, because she is reporting that the Jacksonville Jaguars are listening to calls for wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. How about that? She says, even if a move feels highly unlikely, the Jaguars are also shopping for defense, but they are shopping Brian Thomas Jr. And you know who Brian Thomas Jr. may have played his best ball catching passes from last year? Mac Jones. Mac Jones to Brian Thomas was a good little deal there. They had some nice games together. So not that the Niners need a receiver. They need a pass rusher. They need a corner. They need an offensive guard. They need, they've got a lot of different needs. And I don't know if that wide receiver is one of them. But I love Brian Thomas Jr. And they don't have that kind of receiver. I'll say that. I would gladly be thrilled if John Lynch could somehow trade for Brian Thomas Jr. He's just a difference-making receiver. Now, he's not playing well this year for Jacksonville, and I don't know why. I don't know if he's not happy or if it's I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. But this guy was awesome at LSU, and he was really, really good. Like almost as good as any receiver in football as a rookie. He's got size, he's got speed, he's a big play guy. There's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of talent there. So, I mean, this is a more talented receiver than the receivers the Niners have, in my opinion. And I would be very interested in Brian Thomas if he's out there. So that's out there. That little story's out there that the Jags are potentially shopping Brian Thomas Jr. Diana Rossini also goes on she has a whole article out in The Athletic right now about the trade deadline. She says the Jags are listening to calls for Brian Thomas Jr., even if a move feels highly unlikely. She says the Ravens, Colts, Lions, and Rams are all making calls for cornerbacks. I would not be shocked if the 49ers were on that list as well because their top three corners, Lenore, Stout, and Renardo Green, all are dinged up with various injuries. None of them are serious enough to keep them out, but the old saying is when you run out of corners, you run out of chances. You got to be able to you got to have corners in a passing league. The key to pass rush is pass rush, or I should say, excuse me, let me say that again. The key to pass coverage is pass coverage. In other words, there is no key to pass coverage. You got to have guys. You got to have corners. You got to have real guys. So when your corners run out, it's game over. I mean, it really is. I don't know if you guys remember that Niners game against the Dolphins a few years ago when Ryan Fitzpatrick was at quarterback for the Dolphins and the Niners had to sign Brian Allen on a Wednesday. He had wherever he was, I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't playing football. And they signed him on a Wednesday, and they started him on Sunday because Ahkello Witherspoon told them at the last second, you know what, I can't go, which pretty much ended his run here. That was it right there. You do not play games on game day with roster spots with NFL coaches and live to talk about it. So Witherspoon played that stupid card. You know what? I'm healthy. I'm not healthy. I can go. I can't go. They made him active. Then he couldn't go. They had to go to this Brian Allen, and it was baptism by fire. Oh, my God. I'll never forget it. I was on the binoculars watching from the press box, and every single time Ryan Fitzpatrick came out of the huddle, he literally, I swear to you, he pointed out of the huddle at Brian Allen and then proceeded to throw it at him continuously until they just blew the Niners out. They just totally destroyed the 49ers at Levi's. And all they did was go at Brian Allen, Brian Allen, Brian Allen, Brian Allen all day. Fitzpatrick literally pointed at him and went at him all day. So when you run out of corners, you're done. You got to have corners. The key to pass coverage is pass coverage. You got to have guys who can do it. And the Niners are dinged up there. So Eagles also in that market looking for a corner. Diana Rossini says that Roger McCreary is garnering a lot of interest. He is a Tennessee Titan corner. A lot of people saying, hey, how about Arden Key and Roger McCreary? Well, that sounds like it could be a good fit. The Broncos, according to Diana Rossini, are monitoring the tight end market. That's interesting. She says that teams are showing interest in defensive tackle Quinnen Williams, who was, I believe, drafted by Robert Saleh. Definitely was one of Robert Saleh's favorites when he was with the Jets, though the Jets' asking price is supposed to be high. Connor Hughes suggested yesterday they might take a second-round pick. Rossini is suggesting that Quinnen Williams is going to go for much more than that. He should go for more than that. He's way better than just a second-round pick. But that's a difference maker. You want a difference maker on your defensive front? There it is. Quinnen Williams, difference maker. But are the Niners looking more for a defensive end and not a defensive tackle? Probably. But, man, I would not turn away from Quinnen Williams if you could get him. That would be an incredible get by John Lynch. Bills are looking for help in the secondary at safety and wide receiver. There's some speculation that maybe Pinnock, maybe the Niners with the depth and the surplus at safety might send a safety like Pinnock or Tig to the Bills. I hope they don't send Brown away because I really like Brown. I think Brown's got a big future. The Saints are listening to offers for guys like, Davin Godchalk and Carl Granderson, but according to Diana Rossini, they're not expected to move Chris Olave, despite a number of teams showing interest. Dallas is in the market looking for defensive help, thinking that they can, get in the mix if they just have a better defense. If they just had an edge rusher, maybe a talented edge rusher who with some speed, uh, maybe if they had maybe a Micah Parsons type. Oh, they had him. I mean, go Dallas. Jerry Jones and his kid. I mean, talk about, your lucky billionaire. There's Jerry Jones and his family running. Anybody can coach this team. You haven't been relevant for decades. Thank you, Jerry Jones. But a great businessman, just not a good football man. So that's the story this morning is the trade talks and the trade deadline's looming. It is October the 25th. The trade deadline is November the 4th. And so we're going to devote a big part of this hour to some trade deadline talk. JD's going to stop by. There probably is nobody at KNBR that I like to talk about trades with more than JD, whether they be Warrior trades, Giants trades, Niners trades. JD's awesome on the trade front. He just gets it, and he's following all the rumors and all that kind of stuff. So he's going to stop by in a bit. We'll talk a little bit with JD and get his thoughts. Let's go with some keys to the game, though, right here, because I definitely have some keys to the game. It's 49er forecast on a Saturday. Here are the keys to the game. First of all, the Texans are favored. Texans are 2.5-point favorite. Niners are 5-2. Texans are 2-4, but the Texans are 2.5-point favorites. Mac Jones is going to start at quarterback for the 49ers. And Houston's defense is number one defense in football. Now it seems like every week we're saying that. Oh, the Rams defense is great. Oh, the Falcons defense. But Houston, as far as points per game allowed, is the number one defense in the sport right now. They give up 14 points a game. They're second in defensive EPA. They're fifth in yards allowed, yards per carry allowed, I should say, against the run. They're really good against the run. They're really good on defense. They're just, and why are they good? They get great personnel. They got Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter off the edges. You have maybe the best trio of corners going. Jalen Petrie as the nickel is fantastic. Stingley is a big-time player. Lassiter's a big-time player. So they've got, they can shut you down and they can rush you. I mean, the whole name of the game on defense in the NFL is rush and cover, and they can do both. They can rush up front and they can cover. So it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. Now, the Niners roll in. The Niners passing game leads the NFL in passing yards per game, 271.3 a game. Niners also have the second most yak yards on the year, combined 923 in their 7 games. Pretty good. So what are some keys to victory in this thing? Okay, I'm going to give you a few of them. One, this Houston offensive line is putrid. Horrible offensive line. They're 30th in pass rush win rate. They're our pass block win rate. They're 30th in run block win rate. I mean, that's bad. There's 32 teams in football. They're 30th in pass block and run block win rate. It's a bad offensive line. And they're really bad on the left side. The rookie Ariante Ursery's got talent, but I mean, he's a rookie. And then Laken Tomlinson, the former Niners at left guard, both those guys are bottom 10 in the league as far as pass protection metrics are concerned. So it's a bad offensive line. You got to attack this offensive line. CJ Stroud has rookie receivers this week. Christian Kirk with the hammy out. Nico Collins with the concussion out. So they're leaning on rookies everywhere. Their running backs are rookie Woody Marks. Their 2 starting receivers are probably going to be Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins. They're both rookies. You got to be Niners got to be super physical with these weapons. These are the most fragile. What this group of weapons doesn't want to be touched. They don't want to be. Dalton Schultz doesn't like physicality. Jalen Knoll's a little guy. Higgins doesn't like being muscled. Woody Marks, you can step up on Woody Marks. He's not a big physical guy. The Niners have a physical advantage against these guys. They got to work them. They got to absolutely work them. They got to get up on the line of scrimmage. They got to be really physical with the receivers. You got to hit Schultz. You got to hit Marks. And then you got to confuse Stroud a little bit. He's playing behind a really bad line, and he knows it. And he's got rookie receivers, and they're not that dependable. And he doesn't have his top guys. So he's not good. He's kind of like the opposite of Baker Mayfield. Mayfield rolled in with tremendous momentum. He had completed 88% of his passes the previous week. Stroud's the opposite. He looked terrible Monday against the Seattle Seahawks defense on the road in Seattle. But this same Texans offense that looked just absolutely horrible last week against Seattle put up 40 on the Ravens a few weeks ago. So they're capable. They're capable. But to me, you got to attack their offensive line, especially off the defensive right side, the offensive left side, overload against Ursary and Tomlinson and make them make decisions. That's number one. You got to be super physical on defense with their weapons because it's a finesse group of weapons. You got to muddy the picture and show Stroud a ton of pre-snap everything, even if it all amounts to nothing. You just got to show him a bunch of different looks because you got to slow him down at the line of scrimmage and make him process and make him think and make him decipher. Those are major keys. And then on defense or on offense against the Texan defense, they have Danielle Hunter. They have Will Anderson. They have Azeez Al-Shaair as violent as anybody. They've got great corners. Don't try, get the ball out fast. Run the ball, play action pass off of it. They really do cheat up. If you watch their film, they really do cheat up trying to take away the run. So burn them, lure them in, run the ball, play action pass, and throw it over their head. If you can make Watkins active and throw him a few balls, I would do it because that deep speed would be great. Continue to gang tackle. They did a great job last week, the Niners did on Bijan. You got to continue to gang tackle on Woody Marks. Don't take too many chances on offense. Don't hold the ball. Don't give them running hits at your quarterback on that fast surface. And then I would say the other thing is don't lose the game on special teams. The Niners on special teams. And then the other key, I think, if you look at Houston offensively, they are on 3rd and short. They're really good. So you got first and second down in this game are absolutely essential. If you look at the numbers, Houston on 3rd and 5 or less, they convert those thirds into firsts at the second best rate in football. Okay, so they're really good on 3rd and short. 3rd and 6 or more, they're dead last. Win on 1st and 2nd down. Get them into 3rd and 6 or longer and tee off. And then probably you're going to have to be creative. I don't know how Robert Saleh is going to rush without Huff and without Bosa, but maybe put Nick Martin on the field as a linebacker and send him at the quarterback a little bit. He's got great impact speed, great pursuit ability, very, very fast. Use that speed against C.J. Stroud. I like the Niners to win this game, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'm going to say 17-9, and they hold Houston to 3 field goals, but they don't. I don't think it's going to be a masterpiece. I think it's going to be a defensive slog and quite a struggle. All right, let's do this. Let's take a timeout. JD's going to join us next. We'll talk about the NFL trade deadline, which is approaching, and what are the Niners and John Lynch likely to do. It's all straight ahead on 49er Forecast on the Sports Leader.
KNBR, the Sports Leader. faithful 49ers forecast with Larry Krueger now continues on your proud home of 49ers football, KNBR, the sports leader.
All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly on a Friday as we get you ready for the Niners and the Texans. Niners boarding the bird, going to Houston for a big showdown against Azeez Al-Shaair and the Houston Texans, and it'll be great to see Azeez. Hopefully he doesn't knock out anybody. But with us on the line is John Dickinson, boots on the ground, JD, who's been busy this week. Warriors underway, Giants naming a new manager, Niners mid-season. JD, you're the busiest guy in the Bay. How are you?
I'm doing well, Larry. Good to be with you. And yeah, what a game ahead for the 49ers in Houston as they look to keep things going at 5-2. And I think considering the circumstances, a somewhat surprising 5-2, but they keep finding ways to get it done.
You know, a lot of talk about the trade deadline. Jeremy Fowler throwing out a bunch of names this week. They're interested in this guy and that guy. He threw out Christian Harris, Mark Andrews, Chris Olave, Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Phillips, Logan Wilson, Arden Key, Kingsley Enagbare. And one of those guys is Christian Harris, and he plays in this game for the Houston Texans, but he's kind of fallen out of favor. He's not very old. He's only 24 years old. I don't know, JD. I mean, any of those names, obviously Hendrickson's name jumps off the list. A lot of people feel a deal could be coming down the pike pretty soon. What do you think of those names? Anybody jump out at you? Is there anybody you think would be a great fit for the Niners?
Arden Key. Trey Hendrickson would be a great fit. We've spent a lot of time talking about him, so I'll kind of throw him off to the side. I mean, I think in many ways he would be the perfect fit, but he also, I think, is the kind of fit that is going to be expensive, not only in the salary that he makes, albeit for just the one more year. And I think the Niners would likely be looking to move on from him because he's somebody that's still looking to get paid at a pretty high level moving forward. So Hendrickson, from a football standpoint, I love. Arden Key, I think, feels like that's a match. I mean, they know Arden Key. I think in many ways they've gotten the best out of Arden Key in his career, and he's somebody they always tend to look for. People that they either had or somebody on the coaching staff had that kind of can vouch for their ability to fit in and perform. And when you go back to Arden Key with the 49ers, he checks I think all of those boxes. They had him. He was kind of an underwhelming, underachieving player when he came to the Niners, and he really kind of flourished to a point to where he could continue to move elsewhere and start to make an NFL career in terms of earning some more significant paychecks. So I think, while also still not being somebody that is completely going to break your bank or the draft capital that you'd have to give up to get him. So among all the names you mentioned, Arden Keys is probably the one that I'd have at the top of my list in terms of most realistic, considering the state of where the 49ers are, not only this year, but the state of where they are in terms of just moving forward and not wanting to give up too much and kind of keep their options open for 2026 and that draft and even maybe 2027. Although, and I'll throw this back at you, I'm interested in the debate over a 2026 pick versus a 2027 pick, because you can, if you're the 49ers, I think, and like they have to do the internal calculations, we can all debate it. If the Niners think that they can get some stuff done in the draft in 2026, you don't have to necessarily give up a 2026 pick. If you feel you're going to be good in 2026 because of you're confident in the moves that can be made and the trajectory of this team and the drafts that they've just had in 24 and 25, you could maybe give up a 27 with the belief that the rest of this year and next year, if you give up something in 27, it's going to be, the hope would be bottom 5 to 8, right, of whatever round that is, and maybe you're a little bit more willing to give that up because you're a really good football team. So I think that's the gamble. It's a little, to me, that's far enough out to where I could see John Lynch and the front office saying, well, we're going to be a Super Bowl contender for sure because we love the trajectory of this thing. And if we're a Super Bowl contender for sure, then maybe we can give up a little bit of something there to try and help this season because they've made a number of other moves that they think are going to pan out and will in next year's draft, which I completely understand because this year is still, I think, a little tenuous. Why you wouldn't want to give up much if at any of your draft capital for 26.
It's a really good point. To add to your point, one of the things that I think is almost a lock after last week. I don't want to call it a lock, but I think it is almost a lock. Is that Robert Saleh is going to be a head coach. And then that means he would be hired next year. And wouldn't that give the 49ers another third-round draft choice because he is a minority candidate becoming a head coach? Or have they already – I know they've gotten a pick when he left.
Yeah, can you get the same pick? I believe
you can.
I believe you can. And so, yeah, it's not a scenario where they've already gotten a pick for him specifically years ago. I believe they would get another one for him getting another job.
So that would be another pick. It wouldn't be in next year's draft cycle. It would be in the year following draft cycle. But
it would be that end of the third round type pick.
Right. So maybe, and then of course you do have Mac Jones, and who knows what's going to come about there. But I think what's also clear is that there's going to be the 49ers, if they want to move a quarterback, probably will be able to move one for at least a day 2 pick. Maybe as soon as next year. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of ifs, a lot of questions. I always want to look at, first of all, it's always good to listen to those insiders because they do know, right? Jeremy Fowler and Rappaport, they talk to all these people in the league. Hey, by the way, San Francisco's calling about this guy. The Bengals are calling about that. The Rams are calling about, and they keep a chart. I've talked to these guys at practices and games. I go, how do you keep track? He's like, I literally keep a chart of every whisper that I hear connected to every team so that I know who's connected where and how. And they can do a canvassing of the league. But what I thought was kind of interesting is Bleacher Report. Christopher Knox has a trade block big board out entering week 8. And I think it's interesting because this is one of the first guys that's actually put like draft compensation, like what it would take, and then also linking teams. So let me give you a few of these. And it does kind of illustrate some interesting things about this. One, the return, like the projected return for Trey Hendrickson is a conditional 2026 second round pick. Okay. Now he's a free agent at the end of the year. So you're giving a second round pick for what could be a rental. And that's why that price is a little bit lower, JD. But then if you look at some of the other guys that they tied to the Niners in this thing, Jermaine Johnson, who's another guy from the Jets, a lot of speculation that Robert Saleh could want him. Supposedly the price tag for Jermaine Johnson is a conditional 2026 third round pick. So would you rather trade a third round pick for Jermaine Johnson, but he's under contract next year, or would you rather trade a second round pick for Trey Hendrickson? He's not under contract. See, one guy's a rental, one guy's not. They're basically the same. One guy's going to fetch a second, the other's going to fetch a third. Then I bring up Kayvon Thibodeau. They say he's going to go for a 2026 second round pick, and he's under contract next year. So you could get Thibodeau for a second. You could get Hendrickson for a second. Hendrickson could walk. Thibodeau you have. And then the one that makes the most sense if you just look at these price tags, and who knows? I mean, they're speculating on all of it. But the number one guy on their trade list is Jalen Phillips of the Dolphins. And they list him, his projected trade value as a 2026 fourth round pick.
Some value there, maybe.
Yes. So, he is an impending free agent as well. So he would require an extension in the springtime. But, he's young. He's got upside. He's got great physical tools. And they list the Niners and the Cowboys as the lead dogs for Jalen Phillips. So would you rather trade a lower pick for a guy like Jalen Phillips, but maybe he walks? Would you rather trade a higher pick for Trey Hendrickson, but he walks? Or would you rather trade a in-between pick for a Thibodeau, or a second, maybe the same pick for Thibodeau, but he stays, maybe one round lower for Jermaine Johnson, but he stays? There's a lot of different options there, JD.
What do you think? And Jermaine Johnson's the one that's the one that of the four seems to be where you're giving up maybe more than you'd want for the player that you're getting back, but that's where Robert Saleh obviously would have experience with him and be able to kind of go in. What do you think of Thibodeau as a fit in the 49ers system? I like Kayvon Thibodeau a lot. I think, having another year on the deal is something that I think would appeal to the 49ers. But I mean, what I can give you my thoughts on Hendrickson and Phillips, but what do you think of Thibodeau as a fit? Because that's one that I'm just not quite sure of in the 49er system, because he's a lighter, like he just I don't know, he just you tell me in terms of just kind of the body type and the skill set and how he would fit with the Niners versus the Giants.
Well, you know, he's under contract through 2026. So he's not a rental. He's also the youngest guy on this list. He's only 24. And you have a great D-line coach. Now, the Niners typically like edge rushers who are more in that 270-pound range, because they can set the edge in the run game, and they can also flex inside, right? That's why they liked McKell. That's why they like Yatir Gross-Matos. Beal is 265. I mean, they like bigger defensive ends.
And he's
But,
what, 250, 255?
Yeah, he's smaller. He's a smaller guy. But
Maybe under 250, but listed at 255.
Yeah,
right?
I think, JD, I think if you put him on a scale, I bet you he's 248, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, so he's light. But you know what? Look at Bryce Huff. Has it hurt Bryce Huff to be, 6'1", 250 or whatever, 255, whatever he is? He's looked pretty good. So I don't know.
Thibodeau's tall too. He's long.
He's tall. He's tall. Yeah. So his weight's a little bit more spread out. I like Thibodeau because I think Thibodeau was awesome at Oregon. I think he's a great prospect. I think there's some youth there. I think he could be coached up better in this system. In this system, he don't have to worry about anything other than just get up the field and just get off. It would be a long-term play, but I like that. I really like that, because I think if you have, the other thing is, like, next year you're going to get Bosa back, but are you? I mean, what's he going to be? He's going to have coming off another major injury, another year older. You may want a third edge rusher of note. And if you have Huff and Bosa and Thibodeau, now you're set. I also love it from the standpoint, JD, of Thibodeau can heat up the quarterback. There's just no question about that. And look at what you have in the secondary. Mustafa, young. Tig Brown, young. They're all young. I mean, Luter, young. Stout is young. Siegel's young. You've got a really young but very talented secondary, and I think getting that piece that can really speed up the quarterback makes sense. And then why is Thibodeau, I think, a good fit? Because look at the division. You got 2 games a year against Kyler, and he's got great mobility. And it just seems to me that if you're really going to have success, you got to be able to be better against defending mobile quarterbacks than the Niners typically have been. And I think they've struggled because they do have bigger defensive ends. So a smaller, faster guy would be nice.
But would you want? I guess my question is, if you for this year, let's say, because I'm with you on Thibodeau in terms of the what you would give up versus having another year on the deal. Like, that to me really fits. So if the Niners think that they can get another level of production than maybe we've seen to this point in his career out of him, and you'd have him for a year and a half, basically, I like that for the potential give of a second round pick. But I'm curious just about, can you have Thibodeau and Huff for the rest of this year, or do you need somebody that's a little bit more of that edge setter, bigger type guy? So, but that's interesting, because I do like Thibodeau because of the contract situation. But it almost feels like you've got, Huff. Nobody's like Huff when Huff's, Huff's as fast as anybody, right? Since they've tracked it. But, do you have a little too much speed in terms of your guys that are going to be coming off the edge and maybe leave yourself vulnerable in other areas? As far as Hendrickson, a conditional second, are we talking about a conditional second that turns into a first? Are we talking about a conditional second that maybe turns into a third? Absolutely not, as far as me giving up something that could turn into a first.
Yeah, no, the first is
and really even a
deal
second.
breaker.
And really even a second. But it's, a lot of these deals, and we've seen the Niners do these deals at a lower level in the past, where anytime you say conditional, it's, well, if Trey Hendrickson comes in and has 7 sacks in the final 10 games of the season or whatever, like then it's a first, right? Or but if he doesn't, if he has 2 sacks in 7 games or whatever it is, then maybe it turns into a third. And if it's somewhere in the middle, then it's somewhere in the middle. So as much as you would love to have somebody that could come in and get 7 or 8 sacks in the final half of the season, 7 to 10 sacks in the final half of the season, you'd be paying a price at that point for it, even if he winds up being somebody that doesn't fit into your plan. So I think that's a little sketchy for me. And we'll see if the Bengals hang in it. They got the big win over Pittsburgh with Flacco, and Flacco looked a little bit like a couple years ago with the Browns, where you thought he was kind of cooked, and it's like, oh damn, like he's pretty good, and the Bengals have a lot of offensive talent. To be sure. So we'll kind of see how that continues to shake out. But so Hendrickson's the one that I think Hendrickson is the best fit. I don't think in terms of football, he is the most plug-in kind of older version of Bosa. Maybe not quite as good, but he's just kind of that mold to me. So I kind of look at him as the perfect fit. But I also feel like, at least as it stands right now, he's the guy you're going to give up maybe a little too much for. And it just doesn't equate from that standpoint. And then Jalen Phillips is the other one, just real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, he feels like a value to me. If you're talking about a 4, or conditional 4, maybe it bumps up to a 3, but if you could keep it at a 4, that feels like the high, low risk, potential high reward kind of a move, if you really believe he can come in and help you here between now and the end of the season. I think the Niners would be open if they think they can get a productive player. They would be open to giving up. I know you've said it, a day 3 pick, right? A 4th round and on kind of a thing. You give up a 4th or a 5th for somebody that you really think can come in and outperform that, then that's where your sweet spot is, I think, in doing a deal. And I think Jalen Phillips could fit in that mold. So in some ways, I think in some ways, you could make a case for him being the best fit. Jermaine Johnson's the only one, and maybe that's the guy they wind up getting, but that's the only one that seems like a little bit of a misfit.
Like the price tag seems a little high.
Price tag seems a little high for what you would think you would get back.
Yeah, especially since he's coming off a major injury. I could understand the price being high on a Jermaine Johnson deal if it included another player. If it included, Will McDonald or Michael Clemens or something else in addition to that, or, Quincy Williams or just something else, and then you want to trade a higher pick, then that makes sense. But just, I'll tell you the other thing. I think John Lynch has scars. I think he has battle scars from the Chase Young trade. He traded for Chase Young, and Chase Young dogged it. And that made Chase Young look bad. But indirectly, I'm sure Lynch was pissed. He probably made Lynch look bad. Lynch, when that came out, was like held a impromptu press conference in the back of the media room the next day saying, you're not going to see this again. I mean, he was disgusted by that. And as was I. So I think he's got real scar tissue when it comes to edge rushers who play at their speed and not our speed. And when I say our speed, I mean, the 49ers breakneck pace. So I think he's got scar tissue there. And for that reason, I think Trey Hendrickson is his sole focus to some degree, JD, because I think he knows that even if he pays through the nose for a Trey Hendrickson, he's getting a guy with an absolute, unassailable, awesome motor who plays with his hair on fire and will. And I think I don't think he's as fearful about trading the pick. I think he's fearful of trading any pick and getting somebody who Cadillacs it, like Chase Young did. So I think maybe a deal that might make sense for Trey Hendrickson, and who knows? I mean, Cincinnati doesn't want to move him right now, they say. But he is a pending free agent who could walk. I think a good move would be like a 3rd-round pick that becomes a 2nd-round pick if the Niners win the Super Bowl. Something like that. Because think about it, from the Niner perspective, if they did win the Super Bowl, they would be okay with that. They would be okay with giving away a 2 and not a 3 if they won the Super Bowl. They'd be in such the post-Super Bowl glow that they'd be like, all right, price of doing business. So if you could put a condition like that, how about this? How about it's a 3 this year and a 3 next year, and the Bengals have the option to turn next year's 3 into this year's 2 if the Niners win the Super Bowl. Some condition like that gives them a nice payout and also protects the 49ers to some degree.
Well, here's the other part. Do you think, and you look at some of these other teams that might be in, do you think there would be a better offer? Like, are there teams
Maybe
out
Dallas.
there?
Maybe Dallas.
And I think Dallas might be desperate enough to do the 2 that turns into a 1 because
I think you're right.
So I think that's the part.
Because they have draft capital more from Parsons, right? They got the extra draft capital.
And you know what? Maybe they want to sign Trey Hendrickson. That's the other thing. Like, maybe they view him as somebody. The Bengals were reluctant to do it, and obviously he had the holdout and the hold in, and then he went to, I think he went down to Florida, then he came back, and it was kind of an ugly scene for somebody that's been there for a minute. But I think if you're a team, we assume the Niners would not want to bring Hendrickson back for beyond 2025. If there's another team, and the Cowboys are the team that kind of comes to mind, like maybe the Cowboys would pay a little more, and maybe the Cowboys would actually keep him. I mean, Hendrickson does kind of feel like a Cowboy type player, right? Like a guy that they would bring in and pay.
Yes.
And maybe not, maybe they shouldn't, because he's getting a little bit up there and it winds up maybe in a year or two not looking great. But at the same time, they may be more willing to offer more than the Niners. And I think there could be a couple of teams. I feel, it feels to me like the Niners in this, whatever they do, they're going to have a pretty hard line on what they're going to give up, whatever it is for each of these individual players. They're going to have a hard line. And I really do think the hard line is not giving up a first or a second. And it may be a third if it's the right guy, the right fit. Do the Niners go win 2 more games like that? I mean, that's the other thing too. Do they go beat Houston Sunday and then beat the Giants, and now they're 7-2, with 8 games left, and really, at that point could have the prospect of really doing something special, because they're going to be right there in the middle of that NFC race at that point. So does that change the calculus? But I still think, even saying that, the Niners will not, like, they have a hard line of no 1s, no 2s. We'll figure it out from there. Maybe a 3, but I really do think they would prefer it to be more like a 4 that could turn into a 3, or just a straight 4, something like that. A buy low type of a prospect that could play better for them than he has to this point in his last stop.
And if you're listening to this going, Krug, JD, you guys are doing pie in the sky stuff. Not really. If you go look at the history of the trade deadline, the returns for veteran players is somewhat muted. And so Trey Hendrickson's awesome, but doesn't mean they're getting some bounty of picks. I mean, for every Herschel Walker trade, for every Micah Parsons trade, for every Deshaun Watson trade, there's lots of really good players that go for 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks. It's reality. 2 teams that I think might come into the mix with the Niners are the Titans and the Raiders. Let me throw out a scenario here. Arden Key, I think, makes a lot of sense for the 49ers because he knows the system, has worked under Chris Kasarik in the past, can play inside, can play outside. He's very, very versatile, and he's a good young player. And the Titans are also shopping Roger McCreary, who is their corner. And the 49ers, always are, in the lookout for a corner. Also, if you could somehow make a deal with the Titans for McCreary and Key, you could block McCreary from going to Philly, because Philly is hot on the trail of a corner as well. And they're saying that McCreary might fetch a 4th round pick. So how about a 3rd round pick for McCreary and Key? Something like that, where you get the edge rusher and you get another quality veteran corner that allows you to bring the Upton Stouts and the Chase Lucases and the Darrell Luters along kind of more at your pace. And because, more teams play 3 and 4 wides, more teams go spread. It used to be your top 3 corners played, your back 2 corners really didn't. Now all 5 of your corners play almost every Sunday. So if I could get a good veteran corner like McCreary and an Arden Key, who's he's not Trey Hendrickson, but he's a versatile D-line piece that of. I think that could be a good fit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I'm kind of gauging right now as I look at the injury list and I look at just where the 49ers are at corner, and I'm kind of thinking, do they need a corner? Renardo Green's down. Now
He's got the toe injury, right?
yeah, so he's got the toe, and Chase Lucas filled in admirably for Upton Stout, and I think you could make a case that Chase Lucas is going to get the nod here for a bit, and may just keep the job, honestly, if he's been really impressive this year. Going all the way back to training camp, he's been impressive just with flying around and making plays. I'm looking at the options that the 49ers have. Yeah, you could make a case if Renardo Green's going to be out and Upton Stout is going to be out for at least a couple of more weeks that you could look to add a corner there. But I mean, you're going to get Arden Key and McCreary for what? I mean, it's to me,
A
it's
third round pick. I'm thinking maybe
it's a third and something. I think I
okay,
feel like that. I feel like that's a third.
and a fifth or
That's
something like that.
yeah, third and a fifth. That's some kind of third and a fifth, or maybe a fourth and a sixth next year, or something, some kind of combination. That feels like a little bit too much of a maybe a sweetheart deal for the Niners to get kind of a 2-for-1. But you're right. I mean, if Philly gets him, look out.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a block. I mean, and also, the old saying is, what's the key to pass coverage? Pass coverage. In other words, there is no key. You have to have guys.
Well,
and when you run out of corners, it's brutal. And what do the Niners have? They've got Renardo. He's hurt. He's got an injury. You've got Stout. He's hurt. You've got Lenore. You've got Lucas. You've got Luter. And then
you're a
you're
little
on
thin.
to Saran Neal, and you have Eli Apple on the practice squad. So they're a little thin there, and even one more injury at corner would put you in a somewhat dire position. So that's why I brought up Tennessee. The other team that I think is interesting, and there's not a lot of offensive linemen ever dealt. I mean, you just don't see it often. But sometimes bad organizations will make trades where they trade good young offensive linemen. The Niners, before the Lions, were redone with this current regime, traded, I think, a 5th-round pick for Laken Tomlinson, and they got a number of good years out of Tomlinson, and he was a former first-round pick. And now here are the Raiders, and there's talk that Jackson Powers Johnson, the former Oregon interior player, is on the market, and they're saying he's going to go for a 2026 4th-round pick and or a veteran corner. They're supposedly the Raiders are down on the 22-year-old. Pete Carroll benched him on Sunday during their game against Kansas City. And this guy won the Remington Award in college in 2023. He's one of the best centers to come out of college football in the last decade. He started 14 games as a rookie. He's a natural center, but he's got experience at both right guard and left guard. This would be an investment in the future, even if you didn't start him right away. I would make this move. If I could trade a 4th-round pick and get a talented, what I think is he's a 1st-round pick. If you could get I guess he was a 2nd-round pick. If you could get a past 2nd-round pick who you like, who's pretty powerful and overpowering inside for a 2026 4th or a veteran player to go with it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would definitely be. The Raiders never want to help the Niners, but if Jackson Powers Johnson is out there, that's a phone call I'd make.
I think it's a phone call you'd make. I just don't get the impression the Niners are looking to move anything around to change the offensive line. I think they kind of were forced to because Brendel got hurt and they had to go to Hennessy. And I think Hennessy played well against Atlanta in comparison to Brendel. And so, could they use somebody? Yes. Do the Niners, they don't feel to me like the like that feels like an off-season type of a trade, right? That doesn't feel like an in-season, hey, we're going to bring this guy in and we're just going to stash him and we'll coach him up, when you're getting ready for meaningful games, and maybe we can get him in there, maybe not. But we like him for next year. Like that doesn't feel like the Niners MO. That feels more like if it's a trade you could make let's say, the first week of March, before free agency or something like that, you would go ahead and do it and reset your draft board a little bit if you give up a pick, but know you have somebody that you think could come in and potentially be a starter for you if you can coach them up and get more out of them. So that doesn't feel like a fit to me for where the Niners are, but you're starting to convince me a little bit more on corner considering the injuries, because as you look at the depth chart, there really isn't a lot there, as well as Chase Lucas has played, if you're going to be without Renardo Green and Upton Stout. I mean, Lucas he did a nice job in the slot, but if you don't have somebody that you trust to be able to play on the outside, then teams are really going to attack it. And let's just be honest, Tatum Bethune played really well, I thought, against Atlanta, but teams and better teams than Atlanta, maybe the Texans are not that team offensively, but teams better than Atlanta are going to be able to expose the 49ers. And the Niners are exposable, I guess, at all three levels is what I'm getting at, because of the injuries at corner, because they don't have Fred, and because they don't have the pass rush, and really, I think, overall lack interior depth. Their guys have held up on the interior more than on the outside. And that's the other thing, going back to the pass rusher, they're not going to have Bryce Huff for a little bit.
Right.
And
so they've got a real need there.
So they've got a real need there. Like, I think they already had a need, and then it was, well, let's wait and see how good this team really is now that they don't have Bosa and Warner. But now you don't have anybody for what, a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, it sounds like, for Huff, maybe roughly. Right. So that's tough when you look at because that, we've seen just without Bosa some games, it's non-existent. Huff had a couple of big plays against the Falcons, which really helped him. But I think because of the Huff injury, pass rusher is even more vaulted to the top of the list with a little bit more urgency, just because you can't not have anybody that you trust to get home and hit the quarterback.
Yeah, the more we talk this through, the more I think Key and McCreary kind of might make a lot of sense. Let's get one last thought on the before we say goodbye on Niners Texans. What are you anticipating in this matchup on Sunday? We only got about a minute or so left in the segment, but give me a breakdown. What do you think? What are you looking for in this game? Do you like the Niners in this game? Texans did not look good against Seattle offensively, but their defense is the number one defense in football as far as points scored against it.
Yeah, the defense of the Texans, I think, is the story here. This feels like a good matchup for the Niners defensively, honestly, because the Texans are just completely out of whack offensively, and they have been every game this year. I mean, they're getting booed off the field at their home stadium for being too conservative and for not being able to execute, and they already
bad line, bad offensive line,
offensive line. Like, it's does that make the 49ers? And I'm kind of feeling Salah's ability to scheme it up against a team. We talked about the Niners maybe being attackable in certain ways. I think the Texans are attackable in certain ways in terms of their offense being attacked by scheme and a solid defense. So I think the Niners are going to have a tough time scoring, though. In this one, and they got to avoid the turnovers. This feels like a really low scoring, in the teens. I think kind of a game both ways. And I think if the Niners can avoid the turnovers, as cliche as it is, I think that's what gives them a chance to come out and have the better of the two offenses in this game. But yeah, I feel like this is going to be a uber physical knockdown, drag out kind of a game. Here's the other quick thing. I know we're up against it. This is kind of a desperation game for the Texans. They're 2-4. They're coming off a bad game up in Seattle where they kind of hung in because of their defense, but did not play well offensively. This is a desperation game. I think teams find these moments in the year where it's like, if the Texans are going to make anything of their season, they feel like they have to beat the 49ers on Sunday to get to 3-4 and stabilize the ship a little bit. Otherwise, the whole thing at 2-5, you get to 2-5, you start kind of talking about next year. Versus 3-4, you feel like you're a win away from being in it. So I think, where teams are in their schedule, I think is important. And this feels like a game that the Niners can get, but it also feels like the kind of game that the Texans potentially must get. And so I think there's a desperation factor that could play in.
We'll listen to for JD and Cope Sunday on the pregame. JD, thanks for jumping on Niners Nightly.
Thanks, Krug. Appreciate you.
All right, we got more straight ahead. Niners Nightly on a Friday on the Sports Leader.
KNBR, the Sports Leader. This is where you get your faithful fix. 49ers Forecast with Larry Krueger keeps rolling on KNBR, the sports leader.
Well, we're coming down the home stretch on a Saturday. Hope everybody's having a great one. Thanks to JD for stopping by. Always good to talk a little ball with JD. Thanks to Raph for producing. And we've got, Raph, what are we calling it again?
Hits of the week.
Hits of the week. It's coming up next. I'm back with you tomorrow for Niner pregame with Copes and JD. Bright and early. They get that thing rolling at 7. I think I joined the conversation at 8. Niner game tomorrow at 10. I'm going Niners 17, Texans 9. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. We'll see you tomorrow on the Sports Leader.
We are all faithful. Let's go! On KNBR and KN.